Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled People Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. Entitled Neighbor Keeps Stealing from My Garden. Big mistake. After that, am I the jerk for telling my dad his girlfriend didn't buy me a Starbucks drink? And after that, am I the jerk for proposing to my girlfriend at my brother's wedding? Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen does not get to steal from anyone's garden. Who's gonna stop me, Reddit boy? So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Entitled Neighbor Keeps Stealing from My Garden. Big mistake. Well, I should have known that no good deed goes unpunished. We have a small vegetable and herb garden in the corner of our yard. Two neighbors have the ability and my permission to reach over the fence and snip off any herbs they need. We always grow much more than we can use. One neighbor has been doing it for years with no problems. He takes a spring or two a few times a week and always asks me if he needs more than usual. He repays me in beautiful roses, but I would have no problem with not getting them in return. The other neighbor never cooked, so he never took any. Now he has a new girlfriend, and she happened to introduce herself while I was planting the herbs, so I offered her some once it has a chance to grow a bit. So of course, 2 weeks after I planted, she snips off all but a few leaves off of every herb. 2 weeks, I was livid. My boyfriend went over and explained that it was too soon, the plants were tiny, not ready, etc. He's much nicer than I am. The neighbor apologized profusely and said the girlfriend wouldn't be going anywhere near the herbs until I specifically allow it. A week later, I catch this jerk out there with a pair of scissors, but it's only been a week, and there's nothing to snip out there yet. Apparently, she can't make meatballs without parsley, and the grocery store within walking distance is too far to go. One of my plants has 3 leaves on it. Seriously. The other neighbor doesn't dare take anything before mid-July. Certainly, he would never touch anything before I did. We looked at each other for a few seconds, and then I just said, "Please get your herbs at the store from now on." I can't believe I managed to think of that. Usually I think of a great comeback 10 minutes after the fact. She turned bright red and went in the house. Hopefully, she embarrassed herself enough to stay away. I don't want to have problems with this neighbor. He's nice and quiet and doesn't bother anyone. Tomorrow it will be a week since I caught her again. We'll see what happens. Am I the jerk for telling my dad his girlfriend didn't buy me a Starbucks drink? I, 17 female, have been living with my dad, who's 45, his girlfriend of 2 years, who's 33, and her daughter, who's 13, for a couple of months now, while my mom, who's 40, is visiting my sick grandfather in Sweden. I've only ever stayed at my dad's on weekends, so it's been hard getting used to living with his girlfriend and her kid full time. The kid is super whiny and pretty spoiled because girlfriend dotes on her, so I usually just stay in my room. Today, girlfriend was taking her daughter on a special outing because she passed a math test, and my dad suggested that I go with them for a girls' day out. I wanted to say no, but I knew that he wanted me to get to know his girlfriend and his girlfriend's daughter better, so I agreed. He gave his girlfriend $300 to spend during the outing. We spent the day going in and out of stores girlfriend's daughter liked in the mall complex. Girlfriend ended up buying her a ton of clothes, makeup, and other stuff that I don't remember. On our way back home, girlfriend stopped at the Starbucks because daughter wanted a drink and some cake pops. She ordered a drink for her and her daughter and 2 cake pops. I asked her if I could get something too, and she said she ran out of money and she'd get me something next time. When they got their order, I asked if I could have one of the cake pops, and girlfriend said that it was her daughter's treat for hard work and it would be wrong for me to take one since I didn't do anything that deserved being rewarded. I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty upset. When we got back home, my dad saw their drinks and asked where mine was. I told him that I wasn't allowed to get one because I don't deserve it. His girlfriend got upset and said I was twisting her words, and the daughter just said I was being greedy and was jealous of her. I know I'm not entitled to a drink or a cake pop, but I also don't think it's wrong to be a little annoyed. Am I the jerk? Oh, sweetie, not the jerk. And I want you to know that you absolutely were entitled to a drink and a cake pop or another treat of your choosing. Your dad gave her $300 that was meant to be spent on all 3 of you for the day out. Sure, her daughter may have earned something special for her hard work at school, but from the sound of it, he intended for all of you to get treated a bit. And it's disgusting that she would go to a coffee shop and get things for herself and her daughter, but not for you. As someone older than your dad, even, I can tell you that his girlfriend's behavior was super not okay, and not the way she should be treating her partner's kid. None of my friends would ever treat their stepkids or partner's kids that way in a million years. I'm so sorry that happened to you, and I'm really glad you told your dad. She deserves to get yelled at. OP, thank you. You've really made me feel better. You are nowhere near in the wrong for being annoyed about the way they treated you, and the two of them should be ashamed of themselves for manipulating the situation, and by extension, your father. Once they got called out for their nasty behavior, the $300 was for all three of you. The least they could have done was give you $3 for a cake pop. The fact that they didn't even want to do that should be a clear indication to your father that they cannot be trusted around you. You are definitely not the jerk his girlfriend was. But spill the tea. What was your dad's reaction to girlfriend's lame excuse? OP, this happened 30 minutes ago, and before he said anything, I just went up to my room. I'm hearing yelling from downstairs though. I love my dad a lot, and he's always looked out for me, so I don't think he wouldn't believe me. Update, I just finished talking to my dad. I explained everything that happened at the mall, and he apologized and said he'll be returning everything that was bought and will be taking a day off work tomorrow so we could do something together. He also put up girlfriend and daughter in a hotel so I can have space from them and said they'll be staying there until my mom gets back. Once I'm ready to see them, he said they will apologize to me, and once my mom comes back, he's going to have a talk with his girlfriend. Am I the jerk for proposing to my girlfriend at my brother's wedding? My brother and his wife got married last week. It was a big beach wedding with about 100 people. While the bride and groom were doing their photo shoot that took an hour, the guests were walking down the beach, having some snacks that were served, talking to each other, etc. We were waiting for the dinner to be served. My girlfriend and I had been together for 10 years and we have a kid together. Marriage just never came up. We are both really not the romantic type. When our son was born, I jokingly told her I'd propose to her on a beach at sunset someday. So after the wedding, we were walking down the beach. We were alone. No one was even paying any attention to us at all because there were 100 people there. I just asked her, "So, beach at sunset, will you marry me?" She said yes. We had a good laugh, took a selfie together, and slowly walked back to the site of the reception. We haven't told anyone that we are getting married yet. It will be a courthouse wedding anyway. 2 days ago, my girlfriend posted that selfie on her social media, tagged me, and wrote a caption, "Finally marrying the love of my life," and a sunset beach proposal. Now, everyone who knew us knew it was a sarcastic caption and knew it was more of a joking post than anything else. Brother and sister-in-law called us very upset hours after that post. Sister-in-law said we ridiculed their wedding with our post. Brother said I'm the jerk for proposing at someone else's wedding. Am I the jerk? I was ready to say you're the jerk, but you didn't propose in front of anybody. You didn't even announce it at the reception, and you waited 2 days to post it, so not the jerk. Sister-in-law is the one who's ridiculous here. I actually agree with you on this. Had any of the other guests noticed, then a definite you're the jerk. But the way this was under the radar, I'd go with not the jerk. Why? It wasn't during any part of the wedding. Because proposing during a wedding, the reception is part of the wedding event, is a huge no-no. Had someone else noticed it, then that would have been the topic of conversation, not the wedding, which is why it is a no-no. Since that didn't happen in this case, that's why I said not the jerk. The whole reason you shouldn't propose at someone's wedding is because the attention should be on the bride and groom, and because it would be rude, insensitive, etc. to steal the attention from them. If you and your now fiancé were alone, didn't tell anyone until after the wedding, and literally nobody knew about the engagement at the time, therefore you didn't steal any attention from the ones getting married, then I would say not the jerk. This reminds me of a post where a similar thing happened at a destination wedding, except the proposal was a day or two before the ceremony. They told no one, and the bride and groom didn't find out until like 5 years later when they all returned to that same destination. And still, the bride and groom were bent out of shape. Soft, you're the jerk, since you didn't make a big scene, but don't propose at someone else's wedding unless you have permission from the bride and groom beforehand. You have 364 other days to make a proposal. You're the jerk. It took you 10 years to make this decision. On virtually the one day it could be controversial. Over 3,650 days to choose from. I don't care if a million Redditors say not the jerk. You did your brother wrong and you know it. You're just here trying to find some validation to be the jerk. Well, what do you think? Is OP a jerk for what he did or not? Please let us know. If there's one thing I've learned from Reddit, it's that people make way too big a deal when it comes to wedding stuff. Am I the jerk for going home right after I found out that my future mother-in-law lied about not bringing kids on this family trip? I, 33 female, am a mother of 2 girls who are 7 and 5. Their dad passed from cancer and it was a very hard time for both his and my family. I met my now fiancé, Jack, 36 male, 2 years ago. He's very sweet and adores both of them equally. However, his mom is a bit of a harsh view on single moms, especially with how low my income is compared to his. He's a doctor. I tried my best to have a good, respectful relationship with her, and she started to respond positively, though I noticed that she'd excluded my kids a number of times from a number of occasions. Future mother-in-law informed us of a 3-day family trip that will be a child-free event. She said it's because it involves going to bars and doing activities that aren't family-oriented. She told me I needed to leave my daughters with someone before Jack and I could come on the trip, and I immediately had my sister come and stay with them at home. The trip was supposed to be by plane, 3-hour flight. We were late, but Jack said he intended to arrive late so that we wouldn't have to wait for too long. I saw his mom and dad there. We talked as we waited for sister-in-law and brother-in-law. I then saw them coming towards us with their 3 kids behind them. I was confused. I looked at future mother-in-law and she avoided eye contact. I immediately asked sister-in-law why she brought her kids and whether she was aware that this wasn't a family-friendly trip. Sister-in-law and her husband looked confused and said there was no such thing, but I told them what future mother-in-law had told me and I didn't bring my kids. Sister-in-law didn't say anything, but her husband told me that future mother-in-law must have lied and told me this story to prevent me from bringing mine. Brother-in-law adores them, and he too sees how inappropriate future mother-in-law is behaving. Sister-in-law yelled at him, and I lashed out both at Jack and future mother-in-law and called her horrible, then I walked off. Jack told me to hold on for a minute, but I canceled my ticket and went home. The family had to get on the plane, and after Jack got home, we had a big fight. He said no one enjoyed the trip because I caused everyone to fight by how I reacted. I told him she excluded my daughters, but he said that his mom is entitled to her feelings, and I shouldn't expect to spring the girls on her all the time when she still doesn't consider them as close as her other grandkids. He promised me all that is going to change, and I just have to give them time, and that I shouldn't have walked off and canceled my ticket like that. Not the jerk. OP, run. Why is he blaming you for ruining the trip when his mother lied? And the sister-in-law got mad at her husband, whom I assume married into the family, for exposing the lie. This family is playing the "if they're not blood, they're not family" card, and that is a hard stopping point to reevaluate the marriage. Not the jerk, but I would ask your husband if he considers your kids his own, because it sounds like he doesn't. Thankfully, he's only her fiancé and not her husband. Yeah, I would have canceled Jack along with the plane ticket if he knew about the lie and said nothing. Even if he didn't know, he should have been cashing in his ticket and heading home with OP. If you don't have the back of your soon-to-be wife and kids, you don't deserve any of them. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. Do not marry into this family. Jack and future mother-in-law saw no issue with excluding your kids, and then Jack had the nerve to double down and defend it. He doesn't adore your kids as much as you think he does. Take this for the red flag it is. That was my take too. He's pretending to like them. He definitely planned on arriving late, thinking she would not turn back. Boy, was he in for a surprise. Not the jerk. Future mother-in-law is a major jerk, and so is Jack. Actually, I think he's worse than her. He still went on the trip, and he absolutely knew this was happening from the start. That should show you just how much he actually cares about you. It's awful that she won't accept your kids as her grandkids, though I guess that she is entitled to her feelings, but that doesn't mean she gets to lie to you about the trip. Jack didn't want to be late to avoid waiting. He planned it that way so that you would be forced to stay. He probably wanted you on the plane before sister-in-law showed up, and then blamed you for ruining the trip when it was his mom that lied. You and your kids deserve better. Am I the jerk for telling my family they're not in my grandparents' trust? I'm 44, female, and I have 5 kids, twin boys who are 21, a daughter who's 16, another daughter who's 11, another son who's 9. I come from a large narcissistic family with my dad as the leader. I have 7 other siblings that are just as narcissistic. My childhood was so rough that I went to live with my grandparents in middle school and never went back. Best decision ever. My father is my grandparents' only living kid. He nearly ran my grandfather's construction business into the ground, embezzling money, which forced my grandfather's hand to repossess his business back, which hurt him because he never expected such a thing from his own kid. This damaged their relationship. My father went on to take more money out of their personal accounts and even put them on the line for a mortgage for his home. I begged and pleaded for my grandfather to pursue charges. All he ever said was, "No one will ever prosper from greed." My grandparents came out of retirement in their 70s to bring the business back to life. It was a no-brainer for me. I resigned from my job and moved back home to help them. They did the impossible and made the business a success once again, but in the same, it practically took their lives. For the last 5 years, I've been caregiver and running the business along with my sons alone, and it's no easy feat, but I've done it. Their papa has taught them everything he knows, and they love it so much that they're going to school so that they can be fully equipped to help me more with the business. Mind you, my family hasn't reached out barely at all. We see them on holidays, if that. They didn't even call when they knew my grandparents were in the hospital. My grandmother was first to transition over. The moment word was delivered about my grandfather and the process of transitioning, that's when my father found his hard. He was here every day, and in the same, this is when the disrespect started. I was subjected to listening to my parents and siblings discuss what of my grandparents would be sold and taken, who would get what, while my grandfather was laying right there in bed as they discussed this. Most times I would get up and leave the room and go cry, when I should have been laughing because I knew my grandparents had left them nothing. They have an irrevocable estate trust that's solid and structured to a T. Anyhow, on the last day, my father had the audacity to tell me that he no longer needed my help at the company, that he would be taking back over. I ignored him, asked me when did I plan on moving out because he had some offers on the home. A home that has been in our family for generations. I still ignored him. Then he told me I had 30 days to move out. My mother stated they were being fair, so there was no need for my attitude. I lost it. I screamed at the top of my lungs that my grandparents hadn't left them a dime, so crawl back to the hole they had crawled out of. It's been horrible ever since with all kinds of calls. Not the jerk, but you should proactively hire a lawyer to handle estate matters and to put a stop to any harassment. Also, don't let them be in the house alone ever, and place cameras because they will likely take anything worth value, like grandma's jewelry, etc. I'd be very careful. Definitely not the jerk. Your grandpa was right in the end, but I would definitely consult a lawyer and consider a good security system with cameras inside and out. You know there will be major drama, so cover yourself. Good luck. Am I the jerk for keeping score of my husband's incompetence? I, 24 female, and my husband, 26 male, have been together for 6 years and we have 3 kids under the age of 5. Yes, I had 3 babies in 4 years. Yes, I am tired. In general, my husband is a great guy, but he started doing something that really upsets me. The most recent example. On my husband's day off, he wanted to stay home and rest, so I went grocery shopping, came home, put all the groceries away, cleaned the house, he did clean our room, prepared everything for our son's birthday party the next day, and made dinner. Once dinner was over, I started tidying up, and he got down on the floor to stretch out a pain in his back. I tossed him a paper towel and said, "Why don't you wipe up that spill while you're down?" With a smile, because I thought he would find the paper towel floating towards his head as amusing as I did. He said, "No," got up and walked away. I was so frustrated as this had happened a few other times over the last week. I said, "You can't just say no and walk away like that. It's very rude and disrespectful to me. I asked for help with something." He said, "Did you seriously just tell me I can't say no? I am a grown man. I don't need to explain things to you. You can tell me no, I can tell you no." I told him that I actually would never just be able to tell him no because he would get very upset. I also added that it's not that he can't say no, I just wish he would talk things out with me as a team, such as, "No, I don't have time right now," or "No, but I can get to it later." We went back and forth a few times and just ended up basically agreeing to try and listen to each other more. It really bothered me that he said I could tell him no anytime, as that has never been true in our relationship, so I tested it out. All day Saturday, I tried telling him no about little things. "Will you make that appointment for me?" "No." "Will you go get me a trash bag?" "No." "Will you grab me some lunch?" "No." I didn't put my foot down on any of it. I just started with a no and would go to walk away, and he would either reason with me, convince me, or get frustrated with me each time, and each time I would end up doing it, like I always have. The next morning, he asked me to do something, and I put my foot down and said I didn't want to do it, and he would have to. He got really upset and asked why I was being so difficult, so I told him this. "Yesterday I told you no 11 times. 11 times you got frustrated with me or did not accept the no. Not even one time did you accept my no." He said the fact I kept track and said no purposely to prove a point was toxic, and if he did that with me, I would be really mad. I told him the fact I needed to keep track to prove a point was toxic, when he should want to fix the situation just because it was something that bothered me. He still stands behind my behavior being toxic. So, am I the jerk for keeping track of his behavior and bringing it to his attention? Edit to add. Going to add to this because I think it's important to make clear. Him stretching out after dinner is a very normal occurrence. He wasn't in awful pain, he just had a bit of a catch in his back. I can see how this could appear disrespectful though and appreciate the feedback. I think my biggest frustration is he can say no and walk away. However, I must take care of it because I am not going to leave a mess on the floor for my kids to live with. Also, we do not fight in front of our kids, and we both work to have calm communication in front of them. I strongly suggest that you are married to a narcissist because here's what happened. You went to him with ironclad proof, but are you guys talking about his behavior? No. Instead, you're talking about your behavior. The best defense is the good offense. You gave him proof, and he came back with his own gaslighting accusation, and now that's what you guys are busy talking about. In the meantime, his double standard isn't being discussed. This is what narcs do. Source: former marriage. Advice: don't have any more kids. Info: do you get any days off? Or are you mommy to 4 kids every day of the week? Does your husband regularly say no to your requests for teamwork? Does your husband spontaneously take on tasks? Or does he need to be asked? Does your husband go out of his way to do things in service to you, your kids' upbringing, your household? Or does he just go to work? OP: good question. He always keeps the kids when I ask him, and he's a great father. He usually has to be asked to do most tasks at home, but he works really hard on things outside: grass, house upkeep, etc. He often does not think of ways to serve me outside of his everyday things, which bothers me, but he will usually do whatever I ask if I really need it or want it. So essentially, you bear the entire emotional and planning load of the internal household and family running, while he occasionally does things outside that aren't as frequent? OP: essentially, yes. OP: I cannot tell if you are a stay-at-home mom, but you were very young when you had your first, so I think this advice still applies. I'm a stay-at-home mom, and my husband works long hours in healthcare. Firstly, a marriage is supposed to make both lives happier, healthier, and easier. It requires trust, respect, equality, similar goals and values. Do you have all that? Marriage is about sharing life's burdens, so both lives are improved. Does he do that? Secondly, if you are a stay-at-home mom, your husband still should be doing his fair share of childcare and housework without you needing to tell him. My husband and I established my job as a stay-at-home mom to be that of a nanny to our kids. Anything a full-time nanny position would do is what I do while my husband is at work. I play with, feed, take care, and go on adventures with the kids. Maybe throw in laundry and do day dishes. Anything else is saved for when husband gets home. Then I cook dinner, we eat dinner as a family, and we split duties at night. One does bedtime routine. One does end-of-day chores, wiping counters, taking out trash, night dishes, sweeping. We each get an hour every other night to rest and relax because rest is so important as well. On weekends, I do a deep clean Saturday morning while my husband spends time with our kids. It's important he gets quality time with them. In the afternoon, my husband can do his outside chores if needed, but there is always far less to do outside than inside. Along with that, my husband still does some emotional labor. Yes, I do more housework and childcare and emotional labor, but he definitely contributes. What is the split of household duties for your house? How much time do you think he spends on his chores versus yours? Finally, as a stay-at-home mom, I very strongly urge stay-at-home moms to have the following. Being a stay-at-home mom is such a vulnerable position, you need financial, emotional, and physical stability. But I also think it applies to your situation even if you do work, because you need to think if you're financially equals. Doing all the childcare can still put you at a financial disadvantage. Is your husband able to advance his career faster because you're busy with the kids? You should have access to all, or almost all, of the money in a joint bank account. Can you freely spend money on yourself, your baby, and the household within reason? Do you and your husband each have similar amounts of hobby money? If he spends $100 on games, do you get $100 for your hobbies? Do you feel you can jointly decide how money is spent and your husband will listen to your thoughts and advice? You should have 6 months worth of bills saved in a bank account that your husband cannot access, meaning only your name is on the account. If your husband left you tomorrow, how would you afford food and rent while trying to get back on your feet and find a job? If something happened to him, would you know how and where you would pay all the bills and be able to until you found other money? Do you have a substantial maxed out life insurance policy on your husband and yourself if either of you were to pass? How would you support your kids and yourself if he suddenly left you or passed? Do you have career training in a career you plan to return to after your baby enters school? How could you financially support yourself if needed tomorrow? Re-entering the workforce can be difficult, especially without an education. You deserve to have an ability to support yourself if something were to happen to your husband or your relationship. You deserve a safety net for yourself and your kids. Do you have a retirement account? If you're a stay-at-home mom, has your husband opened a retirement account in your name? By working, he probably automatically has retirement accounts, but you should have some for yourself as well. Finally, do you have family and friend support? Can your family financially, physically, mentally, and emotionally support you if anything went south in your relationship? Can you live with them and have help caring for your kids while you readjust? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her husband? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for telling my sister I didn't ask for us to be sisters any more than she did? My sister is 24 and I'm 26, female. She's getting married and this was a fight over wedding stuff, but it's an ongoing issue. She always had the idea that a big sister is meant to be your best friend, protector, is meant to put you first, take care of you, spoil you rotten, and adore you. I was a letdown for her in that regard. I loved her, of course, but I wasn't devoted to her, and I never thought she was the best thing in my life. Over the years, she's tried to make me be the sister she's always wanted me to be. She's asked me to cancel my plans with friends. She'd give me a list of sister gifts I could buy her. She'd invite herself along to my plans, etc. We fought about it a lot. When she turned 17 and I didn't want to take her on vacation, she lost it with me and told me I was a horrible big sister and I never deserved the job. After she got engaged, she asked her best friend to be her maid of honor and 2 of her close friends to be bridesmaids. Unknown to me was the fact that she wanted me to be upset she didn't ask me. She expected me to confront her and say I wanted to be maid of honor. She brought up wedding stuff at our parents' house and mentioned her bridesmaids. When I didn't comment about it, she asked me how I could be such a jerk. She said I'm her sister and I should be the maid of honor, that I should be hurt she didn't ask me. She wanted to know why I hadn't asked her. I told her to calm down, that it was her wedding and she could have whoever she wanted, that it wasn't my wedding or my business. That started her off on a tangent about how I'm evil. She said it was the only thing that could explain being such an awful older sister. She listed all the stuff I should have done throughout our lives as her big sister, all the duties I had towards her, and how I was nothing but a disappointment and she hated having me as a big sister. It upset me so much to expect so much of me like I'm her parent. I told her I didn't ask for us to be sisters any more than she did, and that siblings are not parents, even when they're older, and it's not our job to cater to younger siblings' every whim. She burst into tears. She told our parents I was being mean. They said nothing, not one darn thing to either of us. She told me I was being the biggest jerk in the world for saying something like that. Am I the jerk? God help the poor person she's roped into marrying her if these are the kinds of games she thinks are acceptable to play. Not the jerk. OP. I feel bad for her future oldest kid most of all. I know she wants them. That will be an impossible burden for them to carry through their lives. Not the jerk. She wanted you to be hurt that she didn't choose you as maid of honor, and it backfired spectacularly. She needs to get over her childish ideas that sisters are best friends and that you're her guardian angel. She's the jerk for trying to manipulate you. Am I the jerk for being upset that my fiance got me the ring I wanted? Not sure how to start this, so I'll jump into it. My fiance has been asking me what I want for my engagement ring for close to a year. I've sent him reference photos at his request. He's asked me to explicitly state which carat I want and what carat my family would find acceptable. Don't ask, they're a bit materialistic and overbearing, one of the reasons I moved away from them. I told him repeatedly what my ideal would be, but emphasized that I would be happy with anything from him because it would be a symbol of his love and commitment. I always knew he makes enough money to buy an impressive ring, but I don't think it's right to put that pressure on him. Fast forward to 2 weeks ago. He ended up proposing with a ring that was completely different than what we discussed. The metal was different, the cut, design, etc. He told me it was a family heirloom. I was thrown off because he never mentioned it before. Regardless, I was over the moon, not only at the thought of marrying him, but so flattered that his family wanted to give me something so sentimental. Obviously, I said yes, and I can only imagine I appeared as ecstatic as I felt. I took the ring and I was overjoyed. He paused for a moment and was confused, but kind of recovers, and we went on about our normal lives. I've been talking about how happy I was to have something so meaningful from his family for the past 2 weeks. Well, yesterday, he sheepishly came to me and gave me exactly the ring we had talked about. At first, I was gutted. I thought his family no longer wanted me to have a part of their history. So he clarified that the first ring wasn't an heirloom, it was something he bought as a joke, and he was expecting a reaction out of me. And he was shocked he didn't get one and didn't know what to do when I was so happy with the first ring. I was floored. In that moment, I was so confused and had so many conflicting feelings I couldn't process in real time that I didn't know what to say. I just walked out of the room. He now is saying that I ruined our proposal and wedding story by walking away and shutting him out when he gave me an expensive ring. He is genuinely upset at me for not being stoked he pranked me initially. Am I the jerk for being disappointed and confused? Wow, you are absolutely not the jerk at all, but your fiancé is a massive, shockingly immature one. What's wrong with him? It's horrifying enough that he's so childish that he thought that turning his marriage proposal to you into some sort of a prank on you in any way was appropriate. But to then try to blame you for not being thrilled when you found out he thought what should have been one of the most special moments of both of your lives and making an actual literal joke out of it? I can't imagine feeling anything but betrayed and furious. Clearly you're not the jerk, but you have bigger problems. This man not only can't read a room, he can't be serious even about the most meaningful moments of your relationship, and he cannot and will not consider your feelings, even above his need to play childish games. Are you sure this is someone you want to build a life with? Because he's showing you who he is, and it's not someone reliable or considerate. I was confused as you are while reading this. Saying the ring is an heirloom obviously has more meaning, especially if he knew you were not materialistic, unlike your family. He didn't think his prank through and was upset your reaction wasn't exactly that of someone who was pranked. I'm guessing he waited for a few days just to see if you would show different feelings about the ring, which didn't happen. It's actually funny if he had a better sense of humor. Had he taken the time to explain his prank and not blame its failure on you, you both would have gotten over it and had a good laugh. Not the jerk, by the way. You literally did nothing wrong. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her fiancé? Please let us know. Every day I think how thankful I am that I don't know any pranksters like the ones we read about in these stories. Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video. Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.